On the other hand, domestic violence is an everyday occurrence in our country. And one particular NGO says what we see and what's actually being reported are just the tip of a more significant crisis. The MOSAIC Training, Service and Healing Center says that domestic violence remains either normalized or hidden. To talk more about the importance of taking allegations of domestic violence quite seriously, the organization's executive director, Advocate Tarisai Mchuchu-Macmillan, speaks to us now all the way from Cape Town. Advocate Tarisai, thank you so much for your time. And good morning to you. Quite concerning, because the reality indeed is that even though we see some of these cases, the SAP's latest stats saying that they have approximately just over 50,000 cases that have been reported of assault alone, women obviously being the victims slash survivors in this instance. There are actually a lot more of these unreported cases.
Definitely, you are right, Dumelo, and good morning once again. We have a big problem. I mean, the numbers that SAPS gave us, or at least published earlier this year, showed the tip of the iceberg. These are reported cases. These are people that have actually gone to SAPS. And we know that we have more. I mean, our states alone, just from MOSAIC and other service providers, can tell you that the help-seeking numbers that we have on our books reflect a much bigger problem than what is being reported by the police. So we do need to start treating these issues, especially around domestic violence, as a standalone issue within the GBV narrative, as a strong point.
So what seems then to be the underlying problem here? What seems to be, I suppose, the underlying problem in terms of the GBV pandemic that we're clearly under in South Africa, but also the lack of more cases being reported, in South Africa?
I think the underlying problem is that domestic violence, and I'm going to speak particularly about violence in the home, is normalized and accepted. We treat it as private violence and not public violence. So in what I mean is that what we are treating intimate partner or family violence is that it's something that we must fix within the family. It's between the two partners. Whereas if you and I were to meet, for instance, in the street and I punched you in the face, it's a crime. Nobody's going to flinch about you were assaulted. I would be arrested and it would be treated as a crime. Whereas if we're in a domestic relationship and I punch you in the face, we were like, no, they must sort it out. There must be some cause. We can explain it away. And this is the problem. And this is why we're seeing a lot of family violence, a lot of intimate partner violence that keeps on going. So we need to deal with it as it is. It is a crime. It is wrong. And it is not private. It is not something that must be dealt with between the partners and that we can explain away.
All right, so let's personalize it here for just a moment. If I am a neighbor and I witness domestic violence, if I am a friend and I have a friend who confides in me that they have been, assaulted by their partner, what is my role? What do I do next?
I think your role, and this is where the critical thing is. The critical thing, of course, in intimate partner violence, and it's a complex issue. You can't just be like to an adult, I'm going to hold your hand and go to the police. But we know that with victims of domestic violence, because it happens over years or over time, and there's shame because it's of course deeply rooted within the family, what we are encouraging neighbors, bystanders, even other family members that witness, is to empower and to encourage the victim to go and report to the police or to go and seek for a protection order at the courts, or to reach out to NGOs such as MOSAIC to ensure that they seek help. The point of it as well is that you don't want to take, like for instance, in the domestic violence bill that is just now before Parliament, one of the things that was included was mandatory reporting. And what we're saying, mandatory reporting, that if you're a bystander, you have an obligation to report if you have witnessed. However, we do not want to take the agency from the adult already who's being victimized, because that's what domestic violence does to you. What we are saying is support the actual victim themselves to report.
But can I just jump in there and say as well, Advocate Tarisai, that, I mean, there have been instances where survivors would say, I would also report the case, go to the police station. The members of the SAPS themselves would tell me and my partner, my husband, go fix it at home, go resolve it. There's no need to have a protection order. There's no need to actually come and open up a case. What then is the role of the SAPS in also perpetuating this notion that whatever domestic violence that's going on, it's up to you and your family and your spouse to resolve it?
That's where our biggest solutions, one of our systemic solutions needs to be. When we talk of SAPS, often we talk about the system and we forget that the system is being operated by people with their own domestic relationships, they have their own cultural, societal upbringing, that in gendered norms that they have been brought up with, and they bring that to their own profession. What we need to ensure as well is that our SAPS members are being trained in not to be desensitized, that they're sensitized to the issue of violence against women, of gender-based violence and domestic violence. And part of that is, and I reiterate, is to ensure that they understand that domestic violence is not a private matter. It is not something that you go and fix, that they have a duty and an obligation to ensure that they arrest the perpetrator, that they ensure that the victim themselves go to court and get a protection order, as is in the law. Their duty is to ensure that they uphold the law. But what's happening is they either become social workers or within themselves, and they decide that they're going to send people away without effectively affecting the law as they should.
We'll leave it there, but thank you so much for highlighting this issue for us. Advocate Tarisai Macmillan joining us there from MOSAIC.